Welcome into Mavericks Today. I am Harrison Graham. Coming up on today's show, we're going to do a little two-man show, myself and producer Coop. We're going to explore the idea of pairing Joel Embiid with Luka Doncic, his future in Philadelphia. A bit uncertain. They got to figure out who their next head coach is. He apparently did not want Doc Rivers to be fired, but they opted to fire him anyway. Could the Dallas Mavericks swoop in and trade for him? I will gladly acknowledge, as we bring in producer Coop, this is a long shot because the Mavs don't have a ton of assets, but I still think it's worth exploring here because he's a big name. He could be on the move, potentially, Coop. Obviously, if you're Dallas, you're not going to be able to offer more than certain teams that could be willing to trade for him, but what if certain teams aren't willing to trade for him because he is 29, he does have an injury history at his size. So I will say this, Coop, as we kind of delve into this, if you could somehow get him with Luka, I would absolutely take the chance.
Oh, yeah. If you could get him, it would be great. I just think the logistics are probably a little too complicated to figure out, not the least of which because the Mavs don't have the assets to do it. But at the end of the day, I don't think Embiid is going to want to request a trade from Philadelphia. It would just have to be a disastrous of an offseason for him to request a trade out of there. James Harden would have to leave. They would have to hire a coach that he doesn't like. So a lot of dominoes would have to fall. But if I'm the Mavs, I'm at least keeping tabs on it. And if something were to happen, they have to do their due diligence.
I think the more realistic scenario here is it's a bad offseason, which turns into a bad year next year in Philadelphia. And then maybe Embiid's like, okay, I'm 30 now. Like, we had this 5-year stretch where we couldn't get past the second round. Now we're not even getting past the first round, just hypothetically. Maybe they lose in the first round next year. Maybe that could lead to a trade request. I do tend to agree he likely would not request a trade right now. He seems to want to make it work in Philadelphia, but even he probably has to understand that he's probably not a guy that's got 10 more years left, especially not in his prime. You know, a lot of guys are playing into their late 30s now, but with his injuries and his size, Coop, I mean, what has he got, 3-4 prime years left, and then maybe 2 or 3 more goodish years left?
That's what I was thinking. I mean, if he lasts till 37 in the league, I think that would be pretty remarkable for someone of his size and injury history. You have probably 3-4 prime years left, and I think it's a pretty steep decline after that. So if you're going to get Embiid, now is the time. And if you're the Sixers, his max value is right now because they're never going to – I don't think his value will ever get higher coming off an MVP year. So it just depends on what the Sixers want to do. I think they would like to keep him. I think they want to extend that competitive window as long as they can, but the Mavs are also trying to extend their competitive window with Luka Doncic.
The Mavs and Sixers are kind of in a similar spot where they're trying to maximize time with their superstar, and like Kyrie here in Dallas, they're trying to figure out, do we bring back Harden or not? I think keeping Kyrie is something Dallas is more wanting to do than Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia's kind of split. Like, they'd like to bring him back, but they don't know about the money. But what do you guys think? Do you want Embiid in Dallas? Type E for Embiid, yes, you do want him. G for I'm good. You'd rather go in a different direction here. Look, I'd take the chance. I know it's a risk, but if you could pair him with Luka, I think Embiid as a number 2 is very, very interesting. Now, Zach Lowe commented on the Embiid trade rumors. He says, Joel loves Philadelphia. Philly loves him. I think it would be very hard for him to follow the superstar forcing my way out of here model. But if James leaves, don't know what's going to happen. And that's an X factor in this, Coop. If James Harden signs with Houston, I still would say it's unlikely at that point. But what if they lose Harden, and they don't really do anything adequate to replace him? Like, it's just kind of him, Tyrese Maxey, PJ Tucker, and these role players. And it's like, we lost in the second round last year in a year that Harden actually played pretty well. How do we take that next step with him leaving? I think Embiid could at least look at the situation and be like, I don't know if this is going to work to the level that we want it to.
Yeah, Daryl Morey and that Sixers front office will have to be very aggressive in trying to replace Harden. And I do think it's pretty likely Harden returns to Houston. So they're going to have to find a way to pair Embiid with another star. And look, even if they don't, and Embiid, let's, for instance, say Embiid asks out of Philly, I think it'll be similar to the Kevin Durant situation in Brooklyn where they're just not going to trade him, and they'll just keep him and try to work it out because Embiid is too big of a superstar to trade, and if you're going to trade him, it's extremely unlikely you get full value for him, and it would be pennies on the dollar. So I think I would say it's a 95% chance he doesn't get traded, but that 5% chance is open. If you're the Mavs and Nico Harrison, you have to try it.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what that even looks like, right? Like, again, I think we're on the same page that you don't have enough bullets in the chamber, probably. It would probably have to be some 3-team trade, I would guess. But, like, you know, it is interesting. And like you said, he's coming off that MVP season here where he averaged 33 and 10. I mean, the guy really did have a crazy year. Didn't play quite as well in the playoffs. He was certainly battling that torn meniscus, so I give him props for playing through that. But it's also, there's a flip side of that. Like, it's not quite the Porzingis level because A, he's a better player, and B, he plays through more injuries than KP did. But you just don't know when you're going to have him. I think that is what could scare teams, but could that slightly lower his trade value too as well? It's hard to know for sure. You look at his history in terms of missing games. Like we said, Coop, he typically plays through stuff. The problem is he always has something. Like he
always has a nagging injury.
He's never 100%.
He's never 100%, but I will give it to him. If he's 80%, he's going to play, unlike some other players in the league, and like one of his former teammates, Ben Simmons. But he does play through a lot of injuries, but the problem is as we show here, he misses some playoff games as well, and that'll impact. Now, they didn't impact him this time because the Sixers ended up winning that series with ease, but you worry about that. When you're missing games in crunch time, that's just not something that you want to invest in if you're the Mavericks.
The one thing that still intrigues and appeals me about it is he wouldn't have to be your number one, right? Like, you could deal with the occasional missed game here as long as it didn't get to a KP level because you would still have Luka Doncic. Who, you know, he's had some little things as well, but for the most part has been available when the games matter the most.
So this is a graph that we've actually used on our Sixers show before. It's basically why the Sixers would trade Embiid. So as we mentioned, 29-year-old big with a lot of injury history.
Yep.
Coming off an MVP season, so his value will never be higher. He's got 3 more years left on his contract. And if he gets hurt and he has a serious injury and misses big time,
you're done.
You're screwed.
So, yeah, I mean, it just when you think of it from the Mavs standpoint, Coop, you're like, okay, well, what assets do we have? Well, you've got the number 10 pick, you've got Josh Green, you've got Jaden Hardy, you've got Tim Hardaway, but like if I'm Philadelphia, if I'm trading Embiid, I'm probably hitting a full reset. The Mavs don't have enough picks.
They just don't have enough.
That's the main problem. Like the only way they could almost do it is if like they make another trade to get more picks, and then they flip those to Philadelphia. Like that's really the only way they could even get into the mix here.
If this trade was to be executed, it would be a 3-team, maybe even a 4-team deal. The Mavs just don't have the ammo to go get Embiid at this point in time. You're talking about a top 10 player in the league at best. So you're just not going to have the assets to go acquire that guy unless you're giving away literally the entire farm, and I don't even think that's enough.
The only curveball I would throw out there is like Kyrie in a sign-in trade, but if you're Philly and you're dumping Embiid, why would you want Kyrie?
Why would you want Kyrie, especially when you have Tyrese Maxey already?
Exactly. So it really just, the timing of it doesn't line up necessarily for Dallas, but it's fun to think about, man. I mean, a Luka Embiid 2-man game, I think, could be absolutely lethal. I do think down the road it could be possible. Like, I think if another year goes by and the Sixers are struggling and Embiid's like, this is going in the wrong direction. We lost Harden. We're a worse team now than we were. I'm 30 now. I think that could change things. His value could be lower.
Well, the thing about that, yes, that could be the case, but the Mavs also have to have a really good season this year as well to reestablish them at the top of the West.
Yeah. Who knows, man? Who freaking knows? Will Embiid ask out of Philadelphia? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. I don't think right now, but I could see it happening in the future. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. More videos to come. Myself, producer Coop, going to keep you guys in the know with the latest and greatest Mavericks news and rumors. The Kyrie buzz continues to circulate, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. Coop, any parting words here?
It's going to be an interesting offseason, man. I don't think Embiid is going to be the last superstar that's rumored to want out of his team.
How about this? Putting you on the spot. Biggest name to get traded this offseason in the NBA.
Biggest name. Trae Young. I'm going to go Trae Young.
Would you take him in Dallas?
No.
I wouldn't either.
I would.
Yeah, F Trae Young. All right, we're out of here.